Welcome to the KMBest podcast. We are going to have a hell of an episode today, no pun intended, because we get to talk about two of my absolute favorite things in the entire world. The first is there's an OTA that came out and it nerfed Hela significantly. I won't say it like nerfed her into the ground, but I really do appreciate that. That's one of my favorite things in the entire world. The second is, and we're going to get to this on the back half of the episode because it's very much more personal to my interests rather than general interest Marvel Snap content. There was a huge Magic the Gathering cheating scandal, which is just one of my other favorite things to talk about. And people will remember this from like episode 2 or 3 where we covered a lot of this ground. It's always nice to add someone else onto that Mount Rushmore, and we are going to cover that for sure. I did want to start with the OTA because I don't think I've ever seen so many nerfs to one deck in a single OTA, which was Hellcow losing a point of power, Swordmaster losing a point of power, Hela losing 3 points of power, Black Cat from 410 to 2-6. So 4 cards in the deck got nerfed. And it's not like any of them individually was like this massive, overwhelming sea change. But what makes Hela so odious is the general lack of the ability that mid-range decks have to go over the top of it. And so cutting down on that is meaningful. And Gerry, you are a, well-credentialed game designer, a former Wizards of the Coast game design intern, as you're with that expert interning perspective.
Also a contractor.
Ah, yes. With that
MH1, baby. You can't forget Hogak.
Great job, by the way. I think that's what everyone wants to say to you about Hogak is like, man, Gerry, I think something else was the problem. Hogak, that was fine. That was just a fine, good, fair card. And, were you also Underworld Breach? Is that MH1? No, that's like a
no, dude. That was a
that's just like a standard set, isn't it?
Nice. Yeah, that was just a standard legal set.
That was cool. All right. With all of that said, though, what is your perspective? Because my issue with Hela has always been less about her specifically and more about what she allows to exist from a metagame context. What is your perspective on how to deal with that? Because they seem to have taken a fairly scattershot overall power reduction rather than I want to solve this problem forever kind of approach. Is that what you would have done given what they have available to them in OTAs?
The weirdest thing to me, man, is that they had all these hate cards for all these different strategies, but there was never any like graveyard hate card.
Yeah.
That would have been a good place to start a couple years ago, probably, because you probably wouldn't have had to do this all that often.
Yeah.
And I would hope certainly at this point that card is coming sometime. I don't know. But assuming we never do get a graveyard hate card, then I guess, yeah, this is what you do, because I at least like the new Hela. I like the fact that it's not, you just play like 4 or 5 of the biggest things in the game and discard those and profit. At least this is asking you to do something a little bit different. I think it's a lot more fun. The games are a lot more dynamic and everything. But yeah, overall, this OTA does kind of do the trick, unless you wanted to like revert Scar or make Scar 8 cost or something silly. So this is fine. One thing though, this is kind of funny, is that all the cards got nerfed to 6 power, and then our buddy Mason sent me a deck list that was just Cerebro 6 with Hela, and then I've seen that pop up in a couple other places too. So it's like,
I am utterly unsurprised to hear that it was Mason who sent you that, because in the little I've interacted with him in a Marvel Snap context, he seems like someone who has literally only ever played decks with Cerebro in them. Like, actually,
he is the Cerebro.
Yeah, like he's played like no other decks ever. He's only played Cerebro, and he appears to have a mind meld with whoever it is at Second Dinner that keeps mentioning Cerebro in patch notes like it's an actual deck. Like, every time they make a change and they're like, also, we'd like to see Cerebro 3. Like, that's not real. What are you talking about? What do you mean?
Yeah, Godspeed.
Yeah, like,
Godspeed.
I'm sure you'd like to see it.
To be fair, them making Cerebro 2 cost was definitely the most beneficial change that they've made for that archetype,
yes.
Right? Does it do anything? No, not really. And I played some with C6 today and like tried out some different 6 power cards or whatever, and I won a little bit, but it was still like, damn, this deck is ass.
Yeah, I mean, I think, longtime KMBest listeners will be familiar with the man known as Butt. That was his first thought as well, was just like, it's C6 Hela time, baby. My favorite thing about OTAs is it is actually impossible for them to release an OTA without randomly affecting a Cerebro deck just by the nature of the
Right.
card. Where, so like every OTA, Cerebro players of some stripe are just incredibly aggrieved. It's like, I can't believe we lost, Luke Cage and Cerebro 3 2 months ago. Like, oh my God, I can't believe you could just still play the card, right? Like, but you don't get the buff off it. And oh my God, my deck is so much worse now that I was definitely winning with before. And
Yeah,
so,
in fact, Mason's C6 deck had Luke Cage in it. So
fascinating.
legal.
Yeah.
Technically legal.
But yeah, like that, like, Hela getting hit in this way, it does sort of speak to the lack of genuinely good tech against her, because Fenris Wolf, I think, pretty clearly at this point has demonstrated that he doesn't do his job when Hela is actually good. And he is only really around for like Mill stuff and Shang-Chi stuff. He's not really stopping her. Like, that's just not a thing he's capable of doing. And I think it's worth talking about why. I think a lot of it is that he's face up, and a lot of it is that Hela is discarding enough stuff that you can't use him to supplement your power in every lane. He's not going to flat out win the game the way a similar face up tech card like Mobius M. Mobius will against Mr. Negative. Both of them need to be face up. One of them has a much higher impact, and that matters, unfortunately.
I mean, it's also just the nature of how Hela resolves, right? Where she's just spitting things out at random locations.
Mm-hmm.
And in theory, Fenris would be a thing that is both taking a thing away from them and giving you a thing, which should allow you to at least more reasonably compete on points. But if the Hela just doesn't play to that location, or like an Infinite or whatever goes to that location, it just ends up not mattering anyway.
Yeah, there's also like weird priority stuff where it's like, oh, the Hela player has priority, so they're gonna summon their stuff back before you can Fenris if that's how it ends up going. And there's just a bunch of weird stuff that makes it not a meaningful tech card. But it does sort of strike me as like, I don't have a problem with Hela the card. I have a problem with Hela the metagame presence. Secondary question, what are all those cords you're messing with right now?
Is a portable charger. But I have another fun thing for you.
Sure.
Have you ever seen what $500 in $5 bills looks like?
No.
It's this.
Why do you have that?
I sold some cards today.
Oh, I
This is
thought it
what
was
they
going to be
gave
like,
me.
oh, I won something. But no, it's just like I cashed out my Mox Opals.
Oh no, I still got those, unfortunately.
I heard they're going to be banned again. As always, Twitter, incredibly reliable source for everything
Oh yeah.
related to Magic Gathering. But yeah, like
I mean, not even just Magic. It really
right,
extends
just
to
everything.
Twitter
It's
is
X the
Twitter is
everything
just the
website.
everything. Yeah, the everything news site. You know?
Yeah, that's what it's there for. It's for reliable news from reliable sources with reliable blue checks that definitely are actual people and not robots. So,
Surely.
with all of that said about Hela, it has resulted in a metagame that's actually fun to play again. Which is to say, there are a wide variety of decks you can play, and a wide variety of relevant tech, and suddenly it sort of feels like when Hela is not stepping on the metagame's throat, there is so much room for things to breathe. Unfortunately, there are a couple of other remaining constraints on the metagame, and they are, of course, Sam Wilson and Iron Patriot, who are in a lot of damn decks. I think if you were to argue like what the metagame triumvirate is right now, Sam Wilson, Iron Patriot, Shang-Chi with some input from Agamotto would be my guess.
I think that's fair. I do think it is worth noting that Sam did get nerfed a little bit, and you can't just free roll the call anymore. It's not nothing.
It's kind of nothing. Like, in the context of why people play Sam Wilson, that felt a lot more like a nerf to a deck than it did like a nerf to Sam.
Certainly a nerf to Surtur.
Yeah.
But like what percentage of decks played called just for points? You know, maybe they're like playing Zabu 2 and like have Galacto, whatever.
Basically
so call
zero.
makes a little bit more sense.
The answer is like basically zero. It's not like literal zero.
I was gonna say,
but it's a small number.
I was gonna say 10%, but
it's less
sure.
than that. It's definitely less than that. Like,
okay,
without a Surtur in there, no. Like it's definitely less than 10% in terms of outside of Sanctum Showdown. I should clarify. like
Yeah.
like Sanctum
Maybe
Showdown,
maybe
sure.
that is
But
maybe that is what my brain is going to. I don't know.
yeah,
I just feel like I was playing them in every deck with or without Surtur, but it was probably just Sanctum.
there was a lot of Sanctum stuff going on there. Yeah, I understand how like Sanctum can bring an interaction like that to the forefront, and the dev team is just like, this is stupid, and they get rid of it. But like when you really get down to it, like how big is your Angela getting when you build around her? Like 8, 9-ish? Yeah, like that's how big your Angela is getting when you like invest in her by like putting Kitty Pryde in your deck or whatever. You get her on turn 2, all that stuff happens. How big is your Sam Wilson getting when you do literally nothing? It's about the same amount. Like you don't actually pay a cost for him going in your deck. He is just going to be the biggest 2-drop, and he is also going to give you that free guy, and also the thing moves around, and also their synergy with Captain America. He's a very good card and a very fair feeling card, which is why I think he gets a lot of rope here in terms of like what he can do. But he is going to show up in a lot of decks basically forever, I think.
I think so too. I mean, obviously there are more further things that they could do to nerf the card.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And I mean, yeah, it compares favorably to Angela, but also Angela sees next to no play.
Sure.
And granted, there is that opportunity cost associated with it. It's like, Kitty is also seeing pretty close to no play, right? And maybe if those packages were a little bit stronger, then maybe things would be different or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know. End of the day, like, yeah, Sam, no opportunity cost, and is much stronger than Angela in a vacuum, which is to say, buff Angela.
Sure. I mean, I'm down for, you know me. I would be down for 2-0 Angela getting +2 any day of the week. That is something that you could always bring to me, and I will always say yes. I do think it's probably worth talking about Iron Patriot because I seem to be roughly alone among like most players on the island of Sam being like basically way stronger because Iron Patriot in part feels stronger and in part is serving a different role, and I value consistency a lot. Iron Patriot's not always consistent, but Sam Wilson basically always is. It's never going to be a bad Sam Wilson game. It can definitely be bad Iron Patriot games. And I think he is to pretty clearly to me like second place in this conversation, where Sam is 1A, especially after Agamotto came out. But he's still very relevant and very worth talking about. Do you think maybe they got to chop a power off or chop an energy off the discount or something like that?
I think that Sam is stronger, especially in terms of looking at what actually wins games.
Mm-hmm.
And it is turn to Sam getting big in addition to all the other stuff the shield is doing for you. But Iron Patriot's way more fun. And you remember
It's
the
true.
times that you get a sick thing off of it, or when your opponent gets a sick thing off of it and just kind of destroys you with it. So yeah, that does end up biasing you towards that card. And I think there's a non-zero chance that at some point I would have looked at Iron Patriot and just been like, no, this card is stronger until I actually like sat and thought about it. But it probably could have had a power less. I don't think I would want it to be like an energy more or anything. It could be a slightly like smaller cost reduction, or it could be like a smaller pool of cards that it draws from too. I think that's an option. Like, there's certainly a lot of knobs that they can turn to with the card if they want to adjust it slightly. I'd be curious to know what the actual win rate numbers are, like just for Iron Patriot in general, but also compared side by side with Sam, for sure.
The ones we have publicly suggest that Sam Wilson is a better card by like a pretty decent margin. The untapped ones last time I checked were like Iron Patriot was like 51, Sam Wilson was like 54. Granted, that was with Iron Patriot having like a 50% play rate and Sam Wilson having like a 30% play rate, so there's more mirrors in the Iron Patriot sample. It's closer than that looks. But
Interesting, yeah.
it's definitely like the cards are both very, very strong, very widely played. I just think Sam's a little bit better on a consistent basis. The other thing that I wanted to bring up though is again, game designer hat on. Would you rather make an Iron Patriot or a Sam Wilson? And I have an answer to this, but I'm not sure it's going to be the right answer. So I'm going to break down the cases for each. Iron Patriot exciting, flashy, unique gameplay, very, very obviously strong. The power is apparent. People complain about it. It feels unfair. It feels really good to play. Sam Wilson, nobody complains about it. It's definitely very, very good, if not broken. And it is somehow able to be broken while not having people complain about it in any way. Fun, unique, flavorful, all of those things are true of Sam Wilson. If you are a game designer who has to choose between making one of those two cards, where do you go?
Thing that you left out in regards to Sam is that it also props up a well-beloved character that is a starter card that I
Yeah.
think a lot of people would like to have a reason to play with, which
Yep.
obviously is Captain America. I think Iron Patriot, but like I also think that if I were in charge of a mobile game, I might do things differently than a lot of mobile game companies do.
Sure.
And I don't know exactly what the driving force is behind Second Dinner or whatever, what they would prefer, but like in terms of Iron Patriot, yes, it is strong, right? But it is one of those things that you do have to pay for. I think that those are allowed to be a little bit stronger, and I don't think it necessarily overshoots that. It's not like Agent Venom in my mind.
It's not.
And I think the fact that the games are more dynamic when you have this card, I think I've said this before in terms of the incentives that the card creates, where it does sort of move you away from hella stuff or like any sort of like late game, like this is where my deck really thrives. And that's assuming like the Iron Patriot deck's matched up against hella well, right?
Well,
But
it's
that's a hell
also
of
like I know that at least the Hela main and High Infinite who constantly plays offbeat Hela builds has actually been playing Iron Patriot in his Hela thing for 2 weeks. So it's just quite a good card.
Yeah. I mean, it does maybe give you the random slot on the curve that you're missing to fill your hella bringing back 4 things, 5 things.
Pretty good with Gambit. Like, yep.
Sure. Yeah, I think it is just more exciting overall, more fun, has good incentives, and it gives you more to talk about in terms of Marvel Snap the game rather than just Sam make power, Sam good, Like end of the day, I think it is certainly good to give your customers something that they can buy, be reasonably happy with, and then the people on the other end are not unhappy about it. Like they're not up in arms, they're not quitting your game or anything. They may lose to Sam, but not in a way that's super frustrating, right? So I would certainly like to do that more often than not, be able to sell things like that to my customers. But I do think that it can't all just be like, oh, yeah, this is just pretty good and I'm happy I bought it. Because I don't think the life cycle on that is super long. Like you're just going to get bored after a while.
I am surprised at this because we had the same answer. I am going to answer Iron Patriot as well for a similar reason, which is for everyone complaining about how unfair Iron Patriot is, there is someone on the other end of that experience who just had the best goddamn game of their life. And that is something that you are in the business of selling. Like, regardless of how we slice it, regardless of how much I rail against Hela, regardless of all of that stuff, you are in the business of selling, I feel smart and strong and like I executed on a game plan. And Iron Patriot, more than maybe any other card in Marvel Snap, feels like you put something in and you get something out. You get to feel like you accomplish something when you do what he is asking you to do. Whereas Sam Wilson is not feeling like you're putting something in or getting anything out. He's just really good and you're doing da 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 da. You're moving your shield around. Like he's just good and he does that. Like that's not something that engages the dopamine the same way. And I think Arishem is an example of like an Iron Patriot type card that a lot of people think of as like, oh, that's an obvious mistake. And to me, it's like, no, that's probably like the best card they made that year. Where it's like,
Yeah.
this is an extremely exciting, extremely popular card that people love playing even when it sucks. And as much as you complain every time you lose to it, your opponent is having an absolute blast and they can't get that experience anywhere else. Arishem, I think it's a little more leeway from me personally as a card
Mhm.
than Iron Patriot does, because I think Iron Patriot is like, the fact that it goes in so much stuff is much more odious, whereas an RSM deck is an RSM deck and has that downside built in. Still, I think that I would rather make an Iron Patriot than a Sam Wilson if I was given the choice.
Yeah, I mean, if it is just you get a chance to make one card one time,
Yeah.
that is certainly what I would want to be doing over the entire life cycle of your game. Obviously, you want some from column A, some from column B, right? And ideally in differing doses and whatnot too. Uh, but I'm much happier to log on and see what's going to happen today when Iron Patriot is the newest card rather than just, oh, I'm doing the thing that I do with Sam or with Angela, where it is just repetitive. You're
Yeah.
like, yeah, hit Angela 8 power again. Look at me. I did it.
I sure did play my 2-drop on 2. You
Yeah.
got, buddy. There is like an element that I enjoy about Iron Patriot that I would kind of be sad to see leave the game, but I would understand if they felt the need to do that, because I mean, we're talking about a card with, again, unofficial untapped stats, 50% play rate. That's a bit stupid, right? Like, it kind of just
Yeah.
goes in whatever. Like, you're just doing it in whatever. Anything that isn't a dedicated combo deck, you might as well do it. And frankly, I think Sam is in the same boat, where it's like, if you're not playing a dedicated combo deck, I don't really care what flavor of mid-range you're playing. You should probably play the guy. And it's like, if you're playing like pretty much any deck of cards that is not like Destroy or Mr. Negative or Hela or whatever, where you're just like so synergy pilled that you're not even really playing the same game everyone else is, like Living Tribunal or whatever,
Mhm.
you're probably just supposed to be a Sam deck. And you're probably just supposed to be an Iron Patriot deck. And it really sort of lays bare just how few other 2-drops are even close. Like, I'm playing a lot of Gorgon and Kate Bishop in that third slot. It's like, you definitely need one, but it's like, wow, there's just really not a lot of other options that are even close to these two. These two are just clear
Yeah.
outliers.
And that's been one of my complaints about Snap for the longest time is the lack of kind of like unique things to do in the 2 slot, where it really often does end up where it's like, well, these are the 3 best generic twos. And so just like a lot of decks play them, or at least, like 2 of the 3, and then whatever they think their deck needs for the other one.
Yep.
And I recognize that it is very difficult to get something that is like super synergy based or whatever, like in the 2 cost slot, right? Because it's going to end up looking like Scream, where it's just it is your entire deck basically. And even past that, like you still need to play 2 other cards. So it's like, I don't know how bad can Sam or Iron Patriot be? They're probably
Answer
gonna be
is
pretty damn
quite
good.
good. They're going to be very
Yeah.
good. Like, they're going to be games where you're playing Scream on 4 with another 2-drop because you prioritized Sam or Iron Patriot. And it's like that. Those are really strong cards once they're able to force you to do something like that. That is like a real endorsement of power there, where it's like, geez, that is a lot.
I'm curious now. I want to go through and look at the twos and just be like, I wish this card was a little bit better, you know?
I mean, we already did that. It's Angela. I wish Angela was a little bit better.
I mean, I do too. I love that card. That is the card that I have the most splits of.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I have the most like awesome variants of her too, and I can only use one of them. That's another minor complaint of mine.
I've
But
got a question for you. Here's a pitch that I think is going to appeal to your boomer old head brain. Okay?
okay,
Bishop to 2 cost.
dude, I'm so in.
Yeah, like, can they
That I
print
mean,
that? Like, is that a card you would buy if they were just like 2-cost Bishop?
yeah, but I think that you
Because like, you
you're kind
can't
of
do it because of Series 1. That's the
you're
reason, right? Like, that's why you can't
yeah,
move Bishop to 2 cost. But you can print
you're
it.
kind of doing a bad thing though, where like if you do that, then Angela is almost certainly completely off the table, right? Like those cards used to be very good in tandem,
Yes.
you know? So if now you put them in the same slot on the curve and people are almost always going to play Bishop instead of Angela,
Yeah.
and what do you have to do to get them to play both again, you know?
I'm just saying, like, bluntly, there's no way they can do that to actual Bishop, but they could make a card that has that text.
You could, but yeah, you're getting into territory where it's like, oh, this is a good card. It's like Sam, just play it.
I wonder if that's true, because like it's definitely not like, oh, that's just a good card in like a curve out deck. If you're just playing like, a Wiccan deck or whatever, maybe. But even then, it's
But
like
like
I don't know. I want to do that.
Doom, for example, it's like, well, that card sucks.
Yeah, like if you're playing like a Doom Sandman deck, like I was yesterday, it's just like this is terrible. This is an awful, terrible, awful card. Why would I play that? But, like I bet you could do that. I bet you could do 2/0 Bishop text. I bet you could make that a card, and I'm not even sure it
Okay,
would be that good.
I got a couple good ones. These are kind of griefers. All right.
All right, fire away.
I feel like people are not going to like this very much because if this is like a very popular thing, it's not super fun.
Uh huh.
But I like the Master Mold Maximus Ronin stuff.
Ah, I feel like that there's some point in the future where they are inevitably going to do what you're describing and be like, we've made Master Mold good. And then people will be like, holy crap, my bad deck is finally good. And then they play it or play against it, and they're just like, this is awful and not fun. And whatever it is that they would have had to do to make it good is probably either too strong or too weak, right? Where it's like, I don't know what it is that they would have to do to make Master Mold good. It would not be putting it to like 2-3. I can tell you that much.
No,
But
but that's one of those things where it's like you could probably do it and maybe it's pretty free, especially if the Ronin play rate is, like sub 3%, which I'm guessing it is.
yeah, like you could definitely 2-3 him just to do it. I don't have any opposition to that. But it's also just like, what's the upside there? Are people going to love playing against that card? I wouldn't.
No, but my goal here is to increase the swath of available playable tubes.
Okay, so
Maybe give you something different to do.
get things to like Scorpion level is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think the Scorpion Change, for
Yeah.
example, was a great one.
Yeah, I was really impressed with that one. Okay, what's your next one?
Similarly, this does not have to be revert to the old version, but bring some version of White Widow back. Not one that is generically strong and you play it and everything, but give me a clog applicable to that isn't incredible.
No. But like
Is
see,
that
like
doable?
the whole time every time from the minute I saw White Widow, I was like, they can't do this. They can't do this. And then they did it, and it turned out they couldn't do this. And the reason they can't do this is because in order, like, first of all, Clog is better the cheaper it is because it goes with other Clog better. That is like really, really, really important to know. Second of all, they made it a Clog card with no downside. They were just like, oh, well, yeah, you also get a body, and also it's a great priority tool, and also the downside is like functionally non-existent. There's no way for it to get stuck on your side like a goblin. My instinct was if they tried to print a 2 -2 green goblin, that card would be too strong. I don't know if that's true now, but it's like, I wouldn't want to risk it. And I think that like that is what a fixed White Widow would look like. It would be like, because if you make her that Clog card again, even if she's just 2/2, put a -1 on your opponent's board, that is suddenly, turn 5, Green Goblin that. You now have an additional tool, and Clog not only scales with cheap tools, it scales with the amount of them it has, because if it can lock off 2 lanes, it's actually just over. And I think that, like, if I worked for Second Dinner, I would have, like, a button on my desk that I would press every single time Clog got above, like, a 10% play rate, and it would just, like, immediately buff Annihilus. Like, it would just be like every time Clog approached a 10% play rate, I'd be like, Annihilus just got another power. Every single time.
I mean, dude, that's another thing is like make Annihilus good again.
Sure.
Not great, not the best mid-range deck, but at least playable. And again, my goal here, increase the amount of playable twos. And if that means that people are more likely to play something like Clog or Ronin or Annihilus or whatever, I think that's great because otherwise these decks, maybe they exist, but what do? They play Sam, they play Iron Patriot, they play Kate.
I think
They all do the same thing.
Ultimately, Annihilus's issue is that he tends to get used in Clog decks rather than as a counter to them. And so he doesn't actually, like, he has this sort of issue of self-countering where, like, the more people play Annihilus, the worse the card gets in a direct way and not just, like, a mirror way. And so I actually think that you probably could build a reasonable, like, if you wanted to, you could do like a reasonable Sam Iron Patriot deck that was running Annihilus stuff. How bad could it be? It's got Sam and Iron Patriot in it. You're probably fine. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
that's
you could also make a slightly different Annihilus, maybe something along the lines of Lady Deathstrike, not quite the exact same thing, where it's
yeah.
like this is like a kind of solid card, but is especially good against
Oh,
Clog.
there's a card coming out next month. Strange Supreme, who like merges with created cards. So he'll eat your opponent's
Yeah.
debris rocks at the very least. That card exists.
Yeah, that kind of helps.
I actually really
It
don't know
also,
how they're going to implement that because they've been doing a lot of weirdness with like created cards and cards created in your hand. And it's like, I don't like, will he eat a green goblin? I don't know. I don't think he
mm,
should, but like, I want him
I
to.
don't, I don't think so either. My assumption was that like this is a card that was given to you, like it started in your opponent's deck, like it was not
Yeah.
created at any point. Uh, but yeah, if there was something like that, it's just like
Yeah.
eat a card that did not start in your deck, for example.
Yeah.
You know, like that kind of thing.
Or just like a card that maybe like a card that literally ate all cards that did not start on your side of the board. You know what I mean? Just something like that.
Yeah.
It's just like
Yep.
get rid of it. It's all gone now, and it like got power for that or something like that. Like just that the kind of thing where it's like the issue with Clog is similar to the issue with Hela, where it's like there are technically counters, especially now that Misery is a card, but they all involve switching decks rather than running a tech card. And that can be a real
Yeah.
issue in a game with an acquisition system that is similar to Marvel Snaps. Or just like in a game, period, where it's like, you know, it would fucking suck to like just have your experience be dictated by everything. Like just say, you know, mid-range decks aren't playable. If you can't go bigger than Hela, you can't win. If you can't counter Clog, you can't win. There are certain decks that tend to promote more binary metagames, and those are overwhelmingly the ones that don't have like sufficient tech answers. Which is not to say there needs to be a sufficient tech answer to everything. It's like, but people, you gotta like give people an option to try to play the deck they want to play in whatever
Yeah.
metagame, especially with this
Yeah, and
acquisition system.
I want them to be able to make cards that function as tech cards, but are things that are not completely embarrassing unless you queue into the correct matchup, you
Like
know?
Gorgon. Gorgon's a great example.
Sort of.
Gorgon's
Okay.
great. Well, Gorgon's like pretty okay right now.
Gorgon is solid.
Yeah.
Very solid right now, but if you don't queue into a deck that is doing that, you are getting a pretty average body. Do you know how many 2/3s there are in this game? I just counted.
I'm going to make a guess. I'm gonna say there are 14.
34.
34?
34
There's
2/3s.
34 2/3s?
Cam, I think I found kind of the problem here. Is that there are 34 of these cards, and like the average power level of them varies by quite a bit. But looking at them, I'm like, no, this is like appropriately costed.
Yeah, there's like 4 good ones, and then everything else is bad.
Right, which just kind of means that these cards are not really going to see play. But like, if the range in power was larger, I think that you could adjust this to some degree where it's like, you know, if Angel was a 2/4 or like Hulkbuster was a 2/4, like these things are more likely to be in consideration. But like anything that is a 2/4 with no real downside, you might just play that as a card.
I think
right?
we're not in that world anymore. I think they should pull the trigger on that. I think they should take like the 10, not the 10 worst 2/3s, the 5 worst 2/3s, and just see like which one of these can we make a 2/4. Like at this point, I think we've proven like, okay, Colleen Wing, that's not an actual downside. Nobody plays her, right? Only a deck devoted to her will play her. If you make Angel a 2/4, no one's playing Angel as a 2/4. I don't think. We have Sam Wilson. We have Iron Patriot. We have Lizard even. Like no one's doing that. I think they're actually safe.
The Lizard change was good.
Yeah, but
good.
I think they're actually safe if they wanted to start doing this to just be like Angel 2/4. Name me another terrible 2-drop, Jerry. You have the list of all of them. There are 35 of them. Name me a dog shit 2-3.
Very easy shocker.
Okay, yeah, we can't do that. He's in Series 1. He's like the card that's supposed to teach you about curves. You take him out of your deck to put Sentinel in because Sentinel is supposed to be strictly better. It tells you that's like part of the tutorial.
Okay. That's many moons ago.
It's real.
Colossus.
Also Series 1, but maybe 2-4 would actually still be fine there. Like, he's really ass.
But I think that is also a unique lesson where it's like, okay, cut your shocker for Sentinel. That makes sense. But now that you have acquired Colossus, do you want to play Colossus or Sentinel?
Yeah, no, I think that he is a card that is so bad that even in Series 1, you could probably do it. The issue would be, like, do we want to buff the Spectrum deck or whatever? Like, they have to care about Series 1 metagames. So give me a 2-3 that sucks, but isn't Series 1 or 2.
Baron Mordo, question mark?
Yeah, 2-4. Sold. That's just,
oh, man.
just happening. Like, Angel's also early, but I think Angel is actually so bad that, like, it's probably just fine to make him a 2-4. Like, he's actually just, like, the deck building tax he assesses on you is worse than anything he could do to you.
Right, and a lot of the good destroy cards are Series 3, right? Like Killmonger, Null,
Venom.
and I think Deadpool?
Yeah, Deadpool, maybe? X-23, Venom.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all Series 3. I think that works. But yeah, like, I think you could really legitimately take some of these cards and make them 2-4s and they would still be bad. And I think that that's sort of the point of which we're at, where it's like the correct amount of power to get out of a 2-drop right now because of Sam Wilson and Iron Patriot, which, like, I guess you could cut them down to size if you wanted and then see what would happen. But the correct amount of power to get out of them is like 8. And if you're not getting like 8 out of your 2-drop, you're probably not going to keep up with Sam and Iron Patriot. So that makes it incredibly safe for them to 2-4 some stuff if they want.
Yeah, and I mean, think of the other things, the other 2s that see play, right? Like Kate Bishop,
Ravona.
Victoria Hand. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Ravona's energy cheat, right? Yeah. But the other ones are contributing towards that 8 power kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess like the move sort of stuff, like Craven is
Dagger,
weird, Sam.
Scream. Yeah. That's an 8. Scream is an easy 8.
Yeah. I mean, she's 2-2 now. I was just looking at 2-2s, but yeah. I mean, if you open that up to 2-2s, it's just like, yeah, all these cards kind of suck too. Like,
there's a bunch of stuff. Yeah, Goose could be a 2-4.
We buff Goose.
Goose could be a 2-4. People are gonna be like, Goose could be a 2-3. I think Goose should be a 2-4.
I'm fine with it.
There's so many more ways to move power around now. Like, we have so many cards that put power into adjacent lanes and stuff like that, such that I think you could just make Goose a 2-4 and be like, go for it. Go nuts. It'd be fine.
Star-Lord 2-3.
I hate him. Like, I don't think that's a fun. I don't think that's a fun thing to make good, honestly. Like, we all just got finished with Guardians of the Galaxy, the game mode. Did anyone come away from it loving it? Did anyone come away from it thinking like, man, I really wish this was my experience on ladder? Because I don't want that to be true.
I would not immediately chase Sanctum Showdown with buffing Star-Lord, but if you inject a card that is, well, I could pretty reasonably get this to 2-7 or whatever, then you have some choices to make, right? Like, do you want to Star-Lord or do you want to play Sam? Do you want to buy Sam? You know?
Well, is that a choice? I don't think you have a choice. If you're asking yourself, do I want to buy Sam Wilson? The answer is yes, idiot. Of course you do. He's the best card in the game, and no one gets mad at him, and he's probably unnerfable because he's the best card in the game that nobody gets mad at for inexplicable reasons. Like,
I'm thinking more so about like when he is available for tokens potentially and not for the season pass.
He's not on the season pass right now. He is available for tokens, and also, yes, what are you buying with your tokens if not Sam Wilson? If Sam Wilson does not meet your criteria to buy, I don't know what does. I straight up do not know what does. I have no clue what card could meet your criteria to buy in any way that Sam Wilson could not.
That's because you're a Jund guy, though, man.
I'm
Some
not
people want to
Jund
do
guy.
things other than make a 2/7.
Okay, let's say your goal is something other than winning. Nice Hulk variant. You're moving it the wrong direction.
I am.
It's
Look what
like
I
looking,
just got.
it's like looking into a mirror.
Look what I
man.
just got.
It's like looking into a mirror.
Yeah,
that's
dude.
Yep, that's me. It's just me and Harrison Ford. That's what I see when I look into the mirror. Is that but red? It's just me and Harrison Ford. And yeah, I guess on the whole, my thought process is there's a pretty clear outlier. They're like those two cards are pretty clear outliers at 2. And there's nothing wrong with having outliers at 2. We have outliers at a lot of spots.
Someone's got to be the best.
Right, like there's outliers at a lot of spots along the curve, right? Like it's not that different. It's just like it is notable when it's like the 2 most recent season passes that are outliers at 2. Like people are like asking Glenn questions about like, are you guys trying to like pump and dump season passes? And then he'll like answer them in like very literal minded, like equanimous answers where he's like, no, actually, if you look at the stats, we've buffed as many season passes as we've nerfed over the last. Like, it's just like he'll do that, and it's just like, Glenn, they're trying to yell at you, man. They don't want an actual answer. Like, buddy,
Yeah,
my guy, this is not the one to go for here. But like,
I love Glenn.
That's
I love Glenn so much.
like the prevailing opinion of my Discord is Glenn needs to stop entertaining this crap, basically. Like, that seems to be like the thing I see the very most is like, why are you answering this, man? Like you just
He's doing his job.
It's not his job. He decided that was his job. His job is not to be the active in Discord dev. That's something he just does for fun.
I guarantee he's not doing it for fun.
It's something he chose.
It is something he chose. It is something that the game desperately does need, and someone needs to do it.
Sure.
He recognized, hey, I'm in a pretty good position to do this, and I'm probably going to be pretty good at it. And that would be my read on the situation.
Like, someone will ask a question that's just like, Glenn, why did you personally take the decision to throw my baby out of this window? And he'll be like, I mean, honestly, when you really get down to it, throwing your baby out of the window was the right decision for the game. Here's a couple of numbers that support that. It's just like, why are you answering this, man? Like, what are you doing, dude?
He's got the receipts, man. He's got the numbers.
It's so funny every time. I sometimes he'll do stuff and just like I really want to tweet it, but I don't want to like I don't want people to think I'm dunking on him. Where it's just like he'll get like a really stupid question and he'll give it the answer it deserves. And I want people to see it because it's funny. But I also know that if I post it, what'll happen is like there will be people in my comments who'll be like, man, Glenn sucks. It's like I don't want to expose him to that. And so it's like I enjoy his shtick, but it does sort of like you gotta be more selective, dude. Like, Jesus.
He's just taking every question as they come in good faith. That is all he's doing.
Yeah, but it's like,
and the numbers supported him doing whatever he did to your baby, you know? Like,
yeah, I mean, look, I'm sorry I had to throw your baby out of the window, but it was really loud, okay? Like, it's really loud. Look at this decibel rating. Like, that is genuinely like the kind of questions you get. It's like, Glenn, would you say that you are an agent for the Chinese Communist Party here to bilk Americans out of their money? And he'll be like, no, there's no evidence pointing towards that at all. I've never done any of that. And it's like, don't answer. Like, don't give this airtime. It's
not even because like, oh, answering it looks bad. It's just like, this is a deeply unserious question.
Yes. And like engaging with it like it is serious is like, that's a little weird. I don't know.
It kind of legitimizes it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like, I don't know. It's like, I as someone who does a series where I just like talk about people's hot takes, I totally understand the appeal of what he's doing. I think I may be one of the few people who interacts with the Marvel Snap community in the same way that he does a lot of the time, actually.
The difference is you are doing it via YouTube and earning ad revenue dollars.
Well, you just said it was part of his job. He's earning probably way the hell more than me.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah.
But it's like his job is not dictated by like clickbaity entertainment, you know? I don't think that's what they hired him for. I think he'd be pretty good at it, but
I gotta I gotta ask him at some point. There's no way for me to approach this conversation with a guy I've talked to like once for my podcast, twice for my podcast, once for my YouTube channel. I want to say maybe it's like 3-2 or 2-2. But the point is, there's no way to ask him for this. But I want a picture of him doing one of my thumbnail faces, and then I replace myself with it at some point and see if anyone notices. Like just like one of my videos just has a Glenn Jones going like on the front and just see if anyone notices. And I want to do that. I really want to do that.
you're both white guys with beards,
It's
but
true.
like
People say we look alike. It's
I
a
know.
comment we've gotten multiple times.
I know.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's kind of where it ends.
We are, in fact, both white guys with beards. What's not to get? This makes perfect sense to me. We look alike. That's
I'm
how it works.
sure Glenn has the numbers on that data to support how much you two look like each other
Okay.
or not.
All right. Moving on to the rest of the OTA. I was struck when you said like I am struck by this Sam Wilson change is what I'll say. Where it's like I don't think this solves anything about this card. Like, I don't think this changes its perception in the meta in one way. I'll tell you what it does do though is it bonks Surtur on the head again. How many patches in a row has Surtur just gotten like whack-a-mole? Like it's just been like it
Here's
feels
the
like
thing.
it's been so consistent where it's like every patch Surtur nerf.
Well, look, man, you can complain about Hela
Mhm.
all you want,
And I do.
and, and eventually they'll take action against it. Okay,
Not
good
because
stuff.
of me, I can tell you that much.
No, it's because of you, buddy. You're the only one out there complaining about Hela,
I mean, I don't think
pointing out that
I genuinely don't think they care. Like my interactions with them have
you're talking about
overwhelming
what you say specifically.
yeah, like about
Yeah,
anything
dude,
I say.
they don't
They do
care.
not give
They
a
don't care.
shit.
I
Like
know. I
like
know that.
they like I think people think sometimes that like they change stuff based on community sentiment or like specifically based on sentiment from like content creators, right? And I can tell you, hand to God, that is not true. Like they will do it only when the data agrees with what I'm saying. That's it. It's the only times they'll ever get it done. It'll never happen
Yeah,
otherwise.
I mean, I think that there are times maybe when data doesn't necessarily agree to the amount that it would require for them to take action, but because a thing is like so widely hated
Mm,
that maybe they would consider doing it kind of preemptively or whatever. But
yeah.
yeah, for the most part, I agree with you. Like everyone, like literally everyone has to hate it and be constantly talking about how much they hate it in order for them to actually care as a useful metric.
Yeah, like here's an example. I was gonna use leader, but that's probably too long ago for people to remember. We're talking about Hela right now, right? There's a 0% chance they nerfed Hela because people complained. Just not real. That's not real. They nerfed Hela because they looked at like a spreadsheet internally and they were like, wow, those are not good numbers. And then they nerfed Hela. Like,
Mhm.
like a lot of the time, people will complain about the right thing, you know? Like people
Oh
will
yeah,
correctly identify the thing that they're mad at, and they'll be like, this is bullshit. A lot of the time they won't, but because the times they do, people are correctly identifying it most of the time, they are going to get like the impression that it was the complaining and not just like the absolute power level. And I can tell you, as someone who is in a content creator channel, which this is public information, I'm not breaking an NDA. There's a content creator channel that I make liberal use of in terms of sharing my opinions about the game. And I can tell you that it has not gotten a single card that I wanted to get nerfed. It has not worked at all. I can tell you for sure that they are not out here listening to my opinions on balance because why would they be? Like, they have
you
numbers
know
and I
what's happening
don't.
right now? You know what's happening right now
What?
is you're doing the Glenn thing. You're like good faith interacting with a
Mm.
thing that you should just not even be giving a shit about.
I give a shit about it if only because it's like a fairly ridiculous concept to me. where it's like,
but that's why Glenn answers those questions too.
Sure, I guess. Yeah, you're right.
He's just like, this person is ridiculous.
We have found another similarity between myself and Glenn, other than the beard and the facial hair and the general skin tone.
That kind of plays into the white guy aspect, though, where you're like, this person is being wrong on the internet. I must inform them of this.
I mean, I think it's a little bigoted of you to suggest that's not a universal experience personally. But yes, I do love talking. I do love explaining myself. That is a trait you can ascribe to me. Yes, that is absolutely true.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you wanted to ascribe a racial motivation to that trait, it would not be unfair to do so along Caucasian lines.
I agree. That's why I did it.
Yep. All of that is to say that, do you want to talk about a guy who really loves talking? Do you want to talk about a guy who is just the apex of adversarial conversation?
I kind of don't.
You don't.
But I will indulge you happily.
Okay. So we're going to move into the KM's special interest portion of the podcast right now. And my special interest is Magic the Gathering cheaters. And I'm going to tell you what I know about this latest situation, which is there is a player who played at the most recent RC, which I'm not going to pretend I know what that stands for. Regional Championship, Remote Control. It's something...
You go to 20 player tournaments at your local game store.
Sure.
And you beat up on some children.
Yes.
And then they let you play in the RC.
What is a region? Is it like the Southwest, or is it like North America?
Yeah, I mean it's weird because there's like a Southeast Asia one, there is China, there is Australia/New Zealand, there is Europe, there is North America, there is Canada.
What?
It might specifically be United States. That might make more sense. And then I believe there is like the entirety of South America.
Okay. So weird, but also that gives me more context for what the tournament actually is. It's not like states, it's like nationals. That makes sense.
There might be like a separate Japanese one too.
Sure. Anyway, the main character of this story is a man named Noah Rabin, who I have never met. I had never heard of. He's a guy. And the action begins in round, I don't know. I'm going to make up 11.
14.
Okay, I was close. Round 4.
Well, are you going for the big action or the
I'm going for the DQ.
Action.
I'm going
14,
for the DQ.
penultimate round.
Okay.
Playing for a Pro Tour invite.
Yes. Noah manages to, while down a game and losing game 2, which Magic the Gathering matches are played at best of 3, so this is like, you're eliminated if you don't win this game, manages to somehow, or by some stroke of luck, his opponent is found guilty of some sort of rules violation and disqualified. Can you share any light on the specifics of the rules violation and how it was arrived at?
Yeah, so they're playing a mirror match that it is a deck that involves playing and picking up a bunch of lands changing zones, and they have a bunch of different ways to do this.
Mirror?
Amulet mirror.
Okay.
And there are a bunch of different ways to do this, a bunch of different ways where you can have this translate into a literal victory where you just kill your opponent outright, or maybe it's like soft lock victory. There's a better word for it, but I'm blanking right now. Where you don't kill your opponent immediately, but like you get so far ahead that they are definitely dead the next turn.
Non-deterministic, or like an unbreakable board in Yu-Gi-Oh.
Unbreakable board sounds right. Sure.
Yeah, that's like the Yu-Gi-Oh terminology for like I've got
virtual
too much
kill.
Stuff. Yeah,
virtual kill. There we go.
Sure.
And his opponent's doing the thing. You know, like you said, up a game, about to win game 2, and it's basically just going through the motions of, you know, you're dead. And Noah, I don't know the specifics of how this went down, but at some point, Noah was just like, you have already played a land this turn. So what you did is illegal.
That is what I'm aware of as well. Like this will be, should be noted, will become a recurring pattern, will be evidenced to be a recurring pattern of behavior, seemingly, or alleged to be a recurring pattern of behavior with this player. What Noah does is he tells his opponent that they've already played a land per turn. You can only play one land per turn in Magic the Gathering. There are cards that impact this. So, like, what he's saying is you played so many lands with your effects, one of those was your land per turn. Now, whether or not this is true, the judges decide that it is. It should be noted at this point that Noah Rabin is not only a level 3 Magic judge, which is
pretty high.
Like, regionally, he's going to be one of the highest people judges levels in the region most of the time. Like, there are going to be regions that don't even, like, I think there's probably whole states without an L3. Like,
oh yeah,
like that's like, this is not like a very common thing to be. But he is also a lawyer. And it quickly seems to become clear on Twitter afterwards that there are numerous stories of this man using his legal and judge skills, knowledge of intricacies, to allegedly blackmail, bully, cheat, and otherwise misrepresent the game state in such a way as to basically hunt his opponent to get disqualified. Lying, for example, about whether or not they actually had made a land drop, and then calling a judge and saying their opponent cheated and made a land drop and played illegally and thus should be disqualified. There was a massive thread. Would you care to give us one of the stories from that thread? I have one in mind, which is the how many game rules violations do you have this tournament one?
Like, that is a good one.
That
sure.
is like, so basically what happened was on Twitter after the event, people were like, I cannot believe a known angle shooter angle shot for a Pro Tour invite. That is disgusting, right? And it was like, what do you mean? What angle shooter? Noah Rabin. And so Noah replies and says, like, this is a lie. I am not an angle shooter. And then a guy who is best known for retweeting Magic the Gathering deck lists quote tweets that tweet with probably 30 different people's accounts of having been cheated or bullied or lied to or gaslit about game states by this man.
Yo, it just kept going and going.
It was
to the point where I think it was like 2 days later, and someone tweeted like, "Oh, I woke up and I checked the Fire Shoes thread, and there were no more replies." Like frowny face.
It was, yeah.
That's when the well finally ran dry.
It basically just it is revealed that, like, okay, there are multiple stores in his local region that do not let him play there because of actions he has taken, because of things like this. There are multiple stories of him doing the exact "you didn't make your land drop" thing.
You did make your land drop.
Oh yeah, you already made your land drop thing. There are multiple stories of him applying rules in favorable ways to people he likes. There's a story about how, like, he at one point knew that 2 players were playing a game incorrectly and that one player was getting an advantage illegally, and that player was unaware of this. And then after the game, he's like, "Oh yeah, I knew you weren't winning, but since you're a friend, I'll let you continue winning." And that story concludes with the opponent approaching the original player about that and saying, "Hey man, did you hear Noah say that?" And the original guy saying, "Yeah, I don't consider him a friend. I don't know what he's talking about." Like,
I can relate to that.
Like, it's just like,
I've never met this guy, like, officially, right? And you know how sometimes people will just come up and talk to you and act like you're friends, act like you've known each other or whatever?
They do that in Twitch chat a lot, actually. That's actually very common. But it doesn't happen to me because I don't leave the house. No one knows who I am.
Smart. Yeah, so this happened on Sunday of this event. On Friday, he came up to me and like, this is how much I don't know him. He said hi to me. I did not immediately recognize who it was. And then based on like context clues, I was like, oh, that must be who that is.
Sure.
And then I'm just like, why the hell are you talking to me? I want nothing to do with you.
So apparently this guy is just like sort of an open secret where there's just been like, I don't know, everyone who's ever met him has a story about him doing this in the context of a Magic the Gathering thing. My favorite one,
At
of
least
course,
one.
is when he's losing a game of high stakes tournament Magic, and he asks his opponent a question, which is, "How many game rules violations do you have on the day?" And you know, that's a weird question to ask for anyone other than a level 3 judge who is fishing for a reason to try to disqualify his opponent. The reason that matters is because if you have 3 game rules violations on the day, your third one turns into a game loss. In other words, he could not win the actual game of Magic, so he instead was attempting to get his opponent disqualified via a third game rules violation and trying to learn if that he was basically trying to angle shoot his own angle shoot, where it's like,
Yeah.
I need to know if
He's
this
just
is
like,
profitable enough for me to do.
yeah, just so you know, I'm about to angle shoot the shit out of you.
What?
Also, like, could you tell me how much I have to angle shoot
Yeah, like,
you?
can
Do
we
I
get
have
a
to get you
gauge?
2 GRVs before I finally give you the game loss, or are you like kind of all the way? Like, how hard do I have to try this?
Yeah, like, do I have to try to get you fully DQ'd for taking an illegal action, or is it just like a simple GRV gonna do? You know what I mean? There's also just like a large amount of these stories also relate to like, I got DQ'd by this man from an event for a very simple thing when it seemingly benefited one of his teammates. That was something else that seemed to come out about that. Not to impugn any of them, I believe his team parted ways with him about 24 hours after the allegations all went public, but it is just like one of those. Go ahead.
I think less. I think less, but
Yes. Okay. That probably makes
I
sense.
could be wrong.
But yeah, it's like I I talk a lot about how much I love Magic cheaters because it's always so low stakes and stupid. But bluntly, what bothers me about this story is it's not stupid. Everything he's doing is honestly pretty clever. Like, there was a story that was related in that thread wherein Noah allows his opponent to do something and then says, "You already made your land drop like 4 moves later, effectively," and then calls a judge and says, "We can't know what actually happened because it's a he said, she said situation, and too many things have already happened. The only remedy is a DQ."
Yeah.
And it's like that kind of stuff where it's like not just necessarily cheating, but doing so in a way that forces the onus of it onto other people. I am someone who, if I sit down for a Magic tournament, someone's like, "You already made your land drop," I might not remember. That might just work on me. Just straight up. It might. And this is the kind of person who is preying on your desire for a rapport with your opponent, who is preying on all of that. But like, what got me about that story was that he kept repeating over and over, there too many things have already happened. We can't know. He's not actively lying. I mean, he is misleading, but like it's a very lawyery thing. And like that one gave me a little bit of the shivers.
Lawyer in the streets, also a lawyer in the sheets. Like, dude is doing this for a job and he's just doing it for fun. Like,
Yeah.
he's doing it to judge, and he even when he's playing, he can't stop judging, you know? Clearly does know the rules quite well, knows how to talk
Extremely.
in these situations, knows how to operate in these situations. And you know, the way that Magic is now, like there's been a large influx of new players because of the pandemic. There was this break where people were not playing live events, and certainly not to the extent of where it's like super high level rules enforcement, where people just did not get a chance to get super familiar with this stuff, or maybe they were and they just kind of forgot how to handle themselves in these scenarios. Like uh, you haven't played for like 3 years now, you have to like shake that rust off or whatever. But yeah, like what happened to the kid is the kid, in fact, did not play at land yet
Yep.
because as it turns out, Amulet is one of the harder decks to play in that format, and kid was in a position where he was about to qualify for the Pro Tour, and so probably knows his deck pretty well, and was able to play it in this position where he knew that he was going to be able to kill Noah, and was not going to do something silly like, oh, I can only proceed if I play an extra land and cheat or whatever. It was just because the deck does a bunch of different stuff. Like there was a card involved that like you sacrifice all the lands you have, you go search for new ones,
Yeah.
and there are cards that'll let you play multiple lands in a turn. So it's just like, what lands did you play? Recreate that from memory.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember all this? No, you're thinking about how you're trying to kill your opponent, how you're about to qualify for the Pro Tour, which for a lot of people is a very huge goal. You're not necessarily going to remember every single step of that turn, and Noah knew that. And I'm sure he waited until the amount where it was like maximum amount of complicated and hard to like recreate the game state. And the kid said on Twitter too, like, he basically got DQ'd because he couldn't 100% explain what had happened, and then he realized after the fact, the thing it was like he described it as like the missing puzzle piece, the thing that made everything fit. Which Noah said that he played this land that enters, gets a counter, and then every turn it gets a counter after that.
Urza Saga thing where he was like, yeah, you definitely played Urza Saga this turn, but it had 2 counters on it. Or was ticking up.
Yeah, which
yeah,
right, which means that it was in play last turn. Actually, yeah. That was not the land he played. So Noah, you're wrong and you're lying. And actually, in that instance, Noah should be DQ. If they are able to discern that he is doing this on purpose. Which, I mean, especially given the thread that we see now, there's a little bit of a track record here.
Little smoke on that fire. Yeah. This is pick one of them. What was your favorite and read it out? I want to get a dramatic reading.
Okay, so this one is not in the thread.
Oh, and wow, we got exclusives.
This is alleged, right? But it's been said by multiple people effectively. Sure. Something to the extent of like him talking about how he is happy whenever he is involved in a judge call because, something quote along the lines of, because then they're entering my domain.
That rocks. That's I take it back. I like this guy now. That's what this is needed for me. Because like I was reading this as like, cold-blooded and calculated, right? But now it takes on an air of the pathetic, right? Like now it's like, oh, this is a guy who just like wants to feel powerful.
Yeah, no, it's in my mind, it is all pathetic because I understand, you got that inner cop, you got that inner lawyer, whatever, like that is who you are. That's how you're coded somehow. I don't really understand how you are that way. Or why you'd want to stay that way. But like I do understand that people do end up that way and they're pretty happy with that. But this is, you are playing a card game that to me is about making like good, sound, strategic decisions.
Yes.
And ideally, whoever makes the most solid, strong decisions is going to be the person who ends up winning the match. And he is purposefully preying on people who do not understand the rule system as intricately as he does, which is like this thing that's completely outside the game. Technically, a lot of stuff that what he is doing is legal. Like angle shooting specifically is like bending the rules, not breaking them. Granted, some of the stuff that he is doing,
a lot of it seems to be just lying though. Like a lot of it seems to be like capitalizing on the fact that Magic players are generally easily flustered and like not expecting this kind of stuff, and that this is a realm that he's practiced in. So what he'll do is he'll just lie about what the game state is, and then rely on the fact that it's he said, she said, and he's good at talking, and the other person's a Magic player.
So the ones that I do like respect in terms of like, oh, this is an actually clever way to go about this. It's still grimy, it's still scummy. I would never do it, but like when opponent does a thing and then 4 actions later he's like, well,
it's like
in theory, too many things have passed for us to reasonably know for certain.
Yes.
Therefore, the only thing is a DQ. That one is just kind of like, yeah, you are working the system.
Yeah, like that is like that is
you are
like,
not.
If that happened
You're not
to
lying.
me, yeah. If that happened to me, like that would work so fucking well. I would probably apologize to the dude. Like
your dogs.
Yeah, like that is like whoa, that is really fucking clever. I mean, obviously, like he's probably just lying about the thing in the first place, which is the bad part. But like that level of dedication to like the one in the thread that this happened in, it only got resolved after an hour because they happened to have security camera footage of the game. And so like
that one is wild. I mean, initially it came out that like he was the one that requested, but it was actually his opponent that did.
Yeah.
Which good on the opponent.
Yeah. Cuz it's like, I mean, like if it gets to the point of like you go to the frickin' security camera footage of this card game, like most people wouldn't push it there, right? Most people wouldn't be sure enough to push it there. And so preying on that little bit of uncertainty in the back of your mind where it's like, did I actually play a land? God, I really don't know. He seems like a trustworthy guy. Like,
yeah, he's an L3 judge.
Yeah. And so it's just like that stuff is like, that's the part that bugs me. Like that's the part where it's like, normally I love these stories. That story's actually scary because it would work on me. That's scary. Like a guy cheating an extra land drop, that's funny. 2 explores, hilarious. This stuff, abusing complicated board states and rule sets, not funny. Lying about it, and then that's funny again. Like it goes back into being funny once he just starts making stuff up. But there's like a middle ground there where it actually is very scary.
Yeah, I mean the whole thread is a roller coaster of stuff because there is a very clear through line that a lot of these just involve judge calls or him being able to get out of judge calls should he be involved in them.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But it's like, oh, this one is just blatantly lying and is very pathetic.
Lying about it.
And then it's like back down into like, oh, this guy's good at this and technically didn't do anything wrong there. It's still scummy, you know, and then it's just like, oh, well, now this guy is just like DQing his friend's opponents. Like that's pathetic again. Yes. It's just
it's an oscillating wave. Like it's a very funny thread where every other story it alternates between like the very pathetic things that Magic cheaters do and then like, damn, that would get my ass so hard. Like he's like an advanced level of this where it's like, yeah, no, that shit would absolutely work on me. And I think it's not lost on anyone that like, you know, you're a level 3 judge, you know all the other judges, you refer to them by name, they are your friends, whereas everyone else, especially players who aren't used to this, like judges always want players to call them, but it's still a threatening experience a lot of the time because of people like Noah who are judges, right? Like you're dealing with a cop. You are always dealing with a cop. There is always potential for it to blow back on you. That's just how it is. That's how this functions. And
the kid went from qualifying for the Pro Tour to getting DQ.
Yeah.
And losing out on a, I'm sure, not insignificant amount of money. And yeah, it was like, cop said, do you know why I pulled you over or whatever? Yeah. He said some dumb shit. Yep. You know, that was it.
Yeah. And because he couldn't perfectly recall everything, he got DQ'd and Noah made the Pro Tour. And this is where it's important to bring up like why I enjoy talking about this stuff. It's very funny, but it's also like there's a bad side here, and it's that there's actually no actual enforcement. As far as I'm aware, this guy's still going to play the Pro Tour.
Yes. I mean, it is interesting because I've heard this from a couple people where it's like, is he just gonna show up to the next thing and act like nothing ever happened?
Seems like the move.
He just got dragged for like 2 days in a row on Twitter, is going to be a running joke for a very, very long time. And I can't imagine that like his interactions with people are going to be pleasant.
Does this seem like a person who wants his interactions with people to be pleasant or cares
I
about
mean,
that?
that's a fair point, but I don't know, man. Like if it was me, I would die of embarrassment. But like that is part of
That's why you
the
don't do
reason
those
why,
things.
yeah, why I would never find myself in this position to begin with.
Right.
You know.
Like
Anyway, I have one to read if you would
sure.
like me to read
Yes,
one.
I would love a dramatic reading.
This is where Fire Shoes starts by saying my DMs are blowing up with more accusations, and then proceeds to post a screenshot of something that someone said him.
It's just
Sent it to
like 50 Notes app screenshots that are all like Noah Rabin lied about the game state, shot me in the head, and then convinced the police that I shot myself. Like that's every one of these.
and then the cops called me stupid.
And then I learned that he was an off-duty cop. Wait a
Yeah,
minute.
I thought that was illegal. I thought they couldn't do that. Anyway, uh, the screenshot goes as such. Noah is notorious for cheating in the Boston/Northeast area. He once convinced a judge to let him take a game loss for having a 20 card card board. Very illegal, very egregious, also hilariously irrelevant. Like 15 is already more than enough. What are the other 5 cards that he thought he might need? Anyway, he once convinced a judge to let him take a game loss in the previous round instead of the active round, stating that he 2-0'd the last round and should simply be changed to a 2-1.
This is insane shit because he's currently involved in a game and manages to rules lawyer his way into a game loss being totally irrelevant to either the game he just finished or the game he's currently involved in.
Like, you fill out a deck list beforehand. You write it all out so that if you ever get deck checked or something like this happens, they could just be like, you're playing with different cards than what you wrote down. Clearly, you're doing some sort of thing to like gain an advantage or whatever. In this case, like such a marginal advantage. Like this is not even a cheat worth doing. It's just straight up, it's not.
It's like
if you're gonna
it's
do
a cheat a bad player would do.
No, for sure.
Yeah, like it's just
Yeah,
like
it
I
is
need to
a
cover all
cheat.
this.
Like not even just a bad player, but like a truly dumb person.
That's where like these are the ones that I enjoy, right? Like 20 card Karn board, love that. Just 5 extra cards in your in that you can tutor. That my favorite thing on earth. Like that I love. That's to explores territory. That's like I really appreciate that one. That's a really good one.
It's so bad. And like I get that he looks at it like I'm free rolling.
Yeah. Why wouldn't I?
Because he knows he's gonna get out of it, even to the point where he's just like, I effectively got no penalty at all for this.
That is literally what happened. Allegedly.
Well, you say allegedly, but multiple people shared the same story.
The 20 card Karn board one came up a lot, yeah. Like,
it did. Weird.
It came up a lot. Like it was like that was an event that multiple people were at and they were like, "Wow, this is wild." There were a few others that were just like that kind of stuff hilarious to me. The working the judges not funny at all. And I think that like, I don't know. This is like the kind of thing where it's like someone made a meme where it was like the guy missing the point where it's like the gag was like, you know, wow, Noah Rabin is a savage cheater, and like that was the point that was being understood, and like the point that was being missed was like some group of people, like lawyers are all sociopaths, was like that was like what the real message of the game was. And like I thought it would be funny if the real message was like judges are all sociopaths. And it's like I don't believe that in the slightest, but it would be it would be a much funnier meme. At the same time, it's like you gotta feel for any judge right now, where it's like this guy's probably the most well-known judge since Sheldon. I do not know a more famous living, rest in peace, Sheldon, judge than Noah Rabin right now. He's the face of what it is to be a judge. And he has used that organization. It's even an organization. They don't pay any. It's not even a thing anymore. But
there's an org that all the judges have to pay dues to, I believe.
I thought they got rid of that and replaced it with they're sending out promo cards.
There was like Judge Academy and Judge Foundry. I think one of
them. But
those
are
folded.
all unofficial.
Oh yeah. No, the only thing that exists for judging is unofficial.
Yeah.
And Wizards cut all support for them.
Right. So it's like basically what's happening is we're living in the Wild West. Anyone can put on their 6-shooters and their silver tongue and just like go out and be a judge of tournaments and lie about things for an indeterminate amount of time until you do it on a big enough stage. And just keep moving from store to store after apparently getting banned from every damn store you've ever gone to for doing the same thing.
You do have to go through some process of certification, but yeah, I mean, like, you could, in theory, pay your dues effectively. Maybe get to the point where you're like L2 or something, or maybe you live in a small town where the local RCQs, for example, like, don't even have a competent judge.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you don't have to be certified to judge those tournaments, I believe.
Where I grew up, I want to say we had one L1 regularly at the LGS. And yeah. Like, that's just how it is.
I mean, especially if you are good at it, like, I think at this point, Noah...
Say what you will about the guy. He clearly knows the rules.
He clearly knows the rules. I think at this point, like, there are the judges who are in it to actually judge and to just ensure that the games are run cleanly and on the up and up and people are having fun. And if they need help with anything, like, hey, how does this interaction work? Like, they are there to serve the players. Like, that is what most judges are trying to do. And I think that that's a very noble cause, right? Because a lot of these events, the higher level ones especially, like, you literally can't run them without like very robust judging staff. And then there's this dude who's effectively like cosplaying as a judge just so that he can get his rocks off or whatever. It's like, it is the most pathetic shit. It is the most pathetic shit I've seen in a very, very long time.
The domain thing is very funny to me. I will say, it's just like, I don't even really know how to describe how I feel about this one. Because normally, these are pure, unadulterated joy for me. Like, talking about this stuff is, like, you know, haha. Also, I will, here's a good one. Unrelated story that came out of the Twitter thread. Totally unrelated to any cheating or allegations of cheating. Because, like, a spin-off of the thread was related to which region is the best at Magic. And so there was a conversation about Northern California and Southern California that included the following anecdote, which was someone sitting down to play Luis Scott Vargas, LSV, legendary Magic player, right? And they ask him...
I didn't know what you were bringing up, and now I do, and now I'm laughing.
They ask him, and I'm going to do my best impression of what I can assume their voice was, which is, hey, man, aren't you SUV? And then Luis corrects him. He's like, no, it's LSV. And the guy goes, whatever, man. Hey, man, aren't you SUV? That's the coolest shit on earth. If someone did that shit to me, I'd be like, yes, that's me. I'm SUV. Everyone has to call me that now.
Yeah, you want me to sign something?
Yeah,
I'll sign SUV.
I will sign this shit as SUV.
LSD?
Yeah, let's go, dude.
I'll sign whatever 3 letters you want, brother.
That is one of the funniest things to ever happen. Aren't you SUV? God bless.
Whatever, man.
Whatever,
man.
Like, asking if someone is someone you recognize, and then where they're like, "No, you mean this?" He's like, "I don't give a shit."
Yeah,
I actually don't fucking care, dude. I was just being nice. That I got pure unadulterated joy out of. It's one of the funniest things I've ever heard that's related to the Magic the Gathering community. This, though, it's like, it's so, I I guess it ties so much into like, the way in which bad things can happen within the letter of the law, or the way in which bad actors can take the letter of the law and use it to do bad things, or to pass a law ostensibly aimed at one thing with wording that allows them to do something else, which is what they actually wanted to do the whole time, and how easy it is to just do that all the time. And so if it was just like, I'm jerking off thinking about DQing players, hilarious. But there is unfortunately actually a lesson here. I hate when my stories have lessons. It's bullshit. It's like, kids TV programming garbage. But there is a lesson here.
Oh God, he's been trying to teach us something all
Yes.
this time. I thought we were just laughing at fart jokes.
Yeah, it's like there is unfortunately a lesson here, and it's that like you cannot trust people like that. That's actually the lesson. Don't trust cops. That's the lesson. That's what I want you to take away from this. But like seriously, like the lesson is like the letter of the law is not open to interpretation per se, but applications of it very much are. And you should be very cautious when engaging with things like that. Which is why the real lesson is play on digital clients where people can't do this shit to you, man. The worst thing that happens to me is someone aims a Miss Marvel emote at me. This kid got robbed live in front of a bunch of people, just absolutely robbed of actual money within the letter of the law. Because there is no real protection for like, hey, what if it turns out my opponent is just lying about the game state and I can't be 100% sure he's wrong? What if the game state is so complex that they are preying on that 1% chance? And Magic is an incredibly complex game, and handling all of that is very complex. And the fact that this even could happen, that the wrong person could get disqualified for this, the fact that it worked, that someone went up to a judge, lied about the situation, and it just fucking worked, is an indictment of the entire program of tournament Magic. There's no better way to say it. Like, this is a clown show, and there is no reason ever for there to not be a judge program sponsored by Wizards of the Coast. There is no, like, at what point will they get the picture that they're blowing up their own scene by letting predators like this keep doing this shit? Because
it's not good PR, I'll tell you that much.
Every time I hear one of these stories, it's like, I am never playing a Magic tournament. And this one is one of the ones that was the strongest on that for me, because it's like, these would work on me. I'm someone who, when my mistakes are pointed out to me, am very quick to be like, oh, damn, you're right. You're so right. I messed that up. I would default to that, and this dude would rob me. And I would probably thank him for it. And that's scary. And the idea that I would have to go out and be that on the entire time, just to like go do my recreational fun so I don't get cheated, is deeply appalling to me. And I understand that a digital client is obviously amazing. And I understand that people don't want like Magic to go digital, and I get that. I get it. But if you're not going to go digital, you have to have an actual fucking judge program. You just have to do it.
I do agree with that, but I also understand the allure of playing paper cards face to face. Like, digital stuff is kind of soulless in a lot of ways, you know, and paper Magic specifically, is more akin to something like playing board games with homies or like a tabletop RPG kind of thing, you know, way more so than Hearthstone, Marvel Snap, whatever. And those games will never have what Magic does. And I think that is a big part of the reason why Magic has been around for 30 years. Many of these games fold in under 5.
Absolutely true. But no one will ever DQ me from my match of Marvel Snap by lying about what's happening on the board, because the computer knows what's happening. You know?
No, but maybe China takes you offline, you know?
No, man, we got to thank our glorious leader, Xi Jinping, because, I mean, that compensation, did you see that? That blip compensation? Yeah, shout out to, What's his official
That
position?
shit was
I guess
dope.
I guess he's the prime minister, right? President? I don't know what his actual position is. Chairman?
God King.
Whatever he is. I mean, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. You really came through for me, my guy.
You hooked it up. New
Yeah.
era.
You hooked it up.
Third dinner now, baby.
I appreciate what you've done here. I also, speaking of new era, I've got one thing at the end. I saw a post on Twitter in the like Marvel Snap Twitter group where someone was talking about like how awesome the bundle, they saw a bundle from like earlier in the life cycle of the game. They were like, this would be $150 now. I can't believe it's released. And what it was one of those bundles that was making up for the season pass that people missed. So it was just like the Thor season pass from the beta, but in a bundle and without the gold or the credits. And they were like, wow, this is so much better than anything we get on offer today. And it's like, dude, that's literally the season pass. You get that every month. Go get the season pass. It's right there. Like, go get it. It's sitting right there.
If you're going to spend any money, it should be on that.
It is absurd, the value gap between season pass, gold pass, and basically every other product they sell.
Yeah, it's comical.
It's like if they had like, I haven't done the math, but it's like, I feel like the value on a season pass is like 5 times better than doing any other spending in the game is. It's kind of unreal.
It is, but it also comes with the semi-requirement that you do log in a lot and you complete a bunch of missions.
Yeah, you got to log in, you got to do your missions, you know? You gotta show up and collect your gold every day. Like, I get why they tied the best value in the game to the stuff that makes you log on. That makes perfect sense. But the degree is wild.
It is wild.
That is a very, very wild degree to which to do.
I mean, it does obfuscate the difference between them too, because they're not giving it to you in a lump sum. It is that slow drip over time. And yeah, I mean, the gold bundle might say like, oh, it's, you know, earn this much for $5 or whatever. Like, that just tells you up front. Right.
The gold pass is also great value. It's just like, you know, 2 times as good as anything else. Where the season pass is like 5 times as good as anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people like get this wrong about the season pass, where they treat it like it's like, oh, it's about the card. If you bought the season pass and the card was Martyr, it would still be 5 times as good as anything else. Because guess what you're not opening now in your guess what you're not opening now in your like Series 4, Series 5 from whatever it is, from Sanctum Showdown. Guess what you're not opening now? You're not opening Martyr. You know, the worst possible Series 5 card attached to a season pass, it's still like X5 value. A card that's actually good, you might as well just say 6,000 tokens are attached to that season pass. Like, you might as well just call that 6,000 tokens. Like, the Sam Wilson season pass was 6,000 tokens plus everything else. The Iron Patriot season pass, 6,000 tokens plus everything else. Value is insane.
Agreed. I buy the season pass. I very rarely do not complete it. It has happened. I feel dumb every time, and that's kind of how they get me to keep logging in.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
They pulled it off. They got your ass. Speaking of new cards acquisition,
I entered their domain.
You entered their domain. I really want to make something like that the title here, where like I don't think people would get it. Like it'd be like when I did the Iron Patriot storms the Capitol one, where it's like I don't want to click that.
Yo, unrelated question. Shoot. Do you know if it's legal to just roll up into Virginia courtrooms and record things?
When you say unrelated question, do you mean you're going to record Noah Rabin being a lawyer?
I'm kind of curious, yeah. What if he's just the Stones?
Yeah, like what if he's just like someone I don't want to make mad by doing this podcast in case I get arrested in Virginia?
What if all of this is just him advertising for his law firm?
What if this is just like how he is? What if he's just like built different and he's like the Saul Goodman, where it's like you don't want a criminal lawyer, you want a criminal lawyer.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes,
like, that would be another layer of the genius. It's like you gotta respect that.
Yeah, because like I would love my lawyer to be like, they just stepped in my domain. I'd be like, I don't care if I did this shit or not. I did not do it. Like that
dude, I know I'm not getting DQ'd.
Yeah.
What if you had judges on retainer? You know,
I mean,
something happens.
Noah
You're like,
effectively did, right? He
Noah.
had himself on retainer. It was like,
Well, yeah,
yeah, that would be a
but
great
I'm saying,
advantage.
like, you get the guy to come over
Sure.
and advocate for you, but also like rule on your behalf. You know?
Yeah. What if, I mean, honestly, I'll be real with you. This has convinced me he's probably a pretty good lawyer. Like, I gotta.
There's still a lot of things that make me think that he's pretty dumb, though.
The 20 card card board does stick out. But like that could just be a lack of domain knowledge, right? Where it's like, I feel like this is necessary because I'm applying heuristics to it that like it's probably better to cover for this than anything than not to cover for it. And I don't have the experience necessary to know that that's not a thing that I need to do, right?
So
Whereas, as opposed to just like lack of intellect.
if it were me, a person who has brain cells that are mostly good for playing Magic the Gathering and not much else,
Sure.
how I would apply this is maybe have some actual cards and then the normal sized card board that everyone else has. I would not simply have 20 kind of dog shit card targets. You know what I mean? Like, this seems like a way to gain an actual edge where you have cards that you can actually sideboard in matchups while still not losing anything from the old list or whatever.
Right. Like,
Why not do it that way?
That makes sense if you assume domain knowledge, which I don't think we can, because from all of the stories, he wasn't a really good player until this started happening. Like, this is like,
Yeah, I don't know about that.
that is like what that is what a lot of the stories were like. He wasn't really all that great until this kind of pattern of behavior started, and then he started being like a much better player. Coincidentally.
Well, yeah, started winning at a more consistent clip, certainly, but like I know of at least he was in a PTQ finals when the card Demon Fire was legal, which was mid to late 2000s, like 15 years ago, you know?
Okay. That makes sense, I guess. I don't know. The
So
impression seemed to it definitely seemed to be like he seemed to take a level up right around the time this started happening.
Yeah, I don't know anything about his life,
Sure.
you know, like people's focus on Magic tends to ebb and flow, especially those who also have some semblance of a real life or whatever. And I don't know what his life story is. I don't know if he started focusing on it more. I don't care to know.
Do you think we'll
And
get like a C&D? You think he'll lawyer us?
Bring it. See, that's the thing, man. Like, okay, me and my best friend, Josh, we used to like kind of joke, but not really. Like, we would hear stories about people saying like silly stuff and getting themselves game losses, getting themselves DQ'd, whatever. Kind of most famously Charles Gindy at Worlds in I think 2008, 2009, something like that. Where not only did Gindy get himself DQ'd, but he was on the national team, which was 3 players, and since he got DQ'd, the entire United States team got DQ'd from the team competition because they no longer had a full team.
That rocks. What did he do?
And it involved Master of the Wild Hunt. And
yeah, I definitely know that one from memory.
I mean, 2 GG, 3-3.
Sure.
Some make a wolf tap. Your wolves fight some shit. Okay. And then like he fought his opponent's thing, and basically the opponent could have assigned damage to not kill a wolf. Which would have been like technically legal, But Gindy, after the game, was like trying to help his opponent. It was like, hey, did you mean to like not deal damage here? And the guy was like, no, like you're supposed to tell me that like I have to deal damage or whatever. And he just ended up getting himself DQ'd as a result of like trying to help this dude because he didn't know I was card worked.
That rocks. Hell yeah, brother.
So like in that scenario, it was basically like my 2-2 and my 3-3 fight your 2-2.
Oh, and the player didn't realize he could assign the 2 damage to the 2-2. And then he was after the game, he was like, why'd you misplay like that? And the guy was like, what do you mean?
Yeah, but if I were Gindy in that scenario, I could be like, well, I just assumed since he didn't say that thing dies that he's assigning it to the 3-3, which is a technically legal thing to do. right?
It seems a little bad faith, honestly, to assume that.
A little bad faith, right? But like the way that you avoid that situation is like just don't say anything to your opponent. But like Guindy's a super nice guy. This culminates in like the judges kind of insinuating that he was cheating, and Guindy getting really upset about this because he's very much not a cheater. And he took it very personally. It was like, okay, if you want to say I'm a cheater, just say I'm a cheater, you know? And then the judges are like, it sounds like you're admitting to cheating, so we're DQing you. But Josh and I would talk about how stuff like that would never happen to us because we would never say or do the dumb thing to get in trouble in the first place. But also, we were both very convinced that if we were ever in that situation, we could talk ourselves out of it.
Sure.
I've never played against Noah.
I don't know. If you step into a court of law, I feel like you're in his domain, you know?
So he says, and I believe that he believes
seems
that.
Like a dangerous lawyer. Like if
I believe that he believes that.
If I need representation in Virginia.
In Virginia, sure. In a Magic the Gathering RCQ or RC, I will destroy him. Like, I just think of like all the ways that it could happen where like especially now that I know his playbook, right? From the thread, I can maybe just play kind of dumb. Maybe this doesn't work because he knows me enough to like try and buddy with me, like saying hi to me and stuff. But like he doesn't know how good I am at the rules or what my understanding is. I think that his assumption is probably like, doesn't matter, no matter what, I'm going to be better than him. And so his thing is like, oh, my back's against the wall. I'm going to call a judge. Well, if he's playing against me, he's pretty dumb. Chances are he's going to be losing. His back is against the wall. He is going to call a judge. And I will lay better than even money odds. I get him disqualified.
There is a that reminded me of in my favorite Magic the Gathering article ever, Gavin Verhey's What We Deserve. He mentions a guy that he mailed Tarmogoyfs to. And that guy, like they were building decks together on presumably MTG Salvation. They were like deck building buddies. He mailed him his Tarmogoyfs. The guy immediately cut all contact and kept the cards. They ran into each other at a tournament later. Sweet revenge. It's time to beat this guy's ass. He loses 0-2. And then he later gets the Tarmogoyfs mailed back to him in the mail with a note titled An Apology. And Gavin was sort of ruminating on like, what does this mean? Like, obviously, this was a movie. I'd beat his ass and like take the Goyfs back, and you know, here I am signing the match slip. It's just like, that is.
It could have only been better if the dude was attacking him with his own Tarmogoyfs to kill him. You know,
it's that's what I think of when you tell that story. It's like, you know, what happens? Like, this is a pretty variance heavy game. Like, you match up against him, you're like, I'm gonna get his ass. He doesn't cheat. He just steamrolls you. He just fucking turn one kills you twice. You're just like, all right, fuck, man. Do you tell him that he missed a land drop? Do you tell him?
Yeah, dude. Maybe that's what I do. You know, maybe I'm feeling some kind of way. I'm just like, hey man,
you already made your land, and you've taken too many game actions.
And too many actions.
We can't know.
Passed. It's impossible for us to know for sure.
It's impossible for us to know for sure.
If you would like, we could call a judge. That seems like the most helpful way to solve the situation.
The other story that I just remembered about the guy was like he slow played a game and was just like repetitively playing slower than his opponent. And then like right when turns are called, like time is almost up, he goes over to the judges, talks for 5 minutes. A judge comes over and watches the remainder of the game and rushes the opponent. Because what Noah has apparently, or what it would be logical to deduce Noah has done, is go over to the judges, tell him his opponent was the one who was playing slow, and that you should really watch out for him, and if he sits there and tanks here, it's time to DQ this guy. He's fishing for a DQ out of a draw, right? Like, it's just like, a lot of his stories seem to be like, commit a game rules violation and then say your opponent did it. That's like a lot of what the playbook here is. And what bothers me about it so much is that it genuinely is just like weaponizing a he said she said situation. To do what? To win a Magic tournament? To get roasted on Twitter? Was it worth it?
Yeah, I think I didn't finish my point from earlier, but like my whole thing about like playing these card games is like I want to have who wins be determined by the cards that we play and how we play them and the decisions we make. And like, if I make good decisions, I will feel good about myself. If I win through this kind of nonsense or like a chandelier falls and crushes my opponent or whatever, like, I don't feel good about that. But somehow this guy keeps doing it. And it's like, knows that this is the only way that he could ever be successful.
I don't
Right?
know. The
It just,
chandelier thing, I feel like I root for that like half of every Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Just like it'd be
yeah.
really nice if
Well,
like a
that's like
chandelier
crushed
fell.
both teams.
Yeah, but still, like I empathize with chandelier guy. You know, you gotta play to
Yeah.
your
I mean,
outs.
hey, maybe chandelier crushes me too, and then we
Yeah,
don't have to worry about any of this stuff. But
absolutely. It's a big enough chandelier.
yeah, it is so pathetic to me that like in this game that I think many people feel is about one thing, playing the literal actual game. He is like, I'm going to step outside of this because I'm not very good at it, and I will instead beat them at something else that they were not even prepping for, and somehow that makes me feel good. Pathetic.
Oh man, like I don't know. There is like that angle where it's the jerking off while disqualifying people angle, where it's like I feel like that's the thing he might actually enjoy out of this. God, Noah Rabin, come on this podcast. I have so many questions for you.
Is that what we've been doing for the last 30 minutes? Is just kink shaming? Because now I feel bad.
I mean, what if that is the only way he can get off? Like, what if that is what it requires? It wouldn't be the weirdest thing I'd ever heard. It'd be up there,
No,
but it wouldn't be the
no, it's
weirdest. Like,
not the weirdest.
yeah, what if he's just, misunderstood lawyer? No, Noah Rabin innocent is really what we're trying to say here.
Free Noah.
Free Noah. We got to put that on a t-shirt. That would do
Yeah.
numbers.
You
How
just-
much
you-
do I
you
have to
do
pay you to get a wear a free Noah t-shirt to the next?
You have to mock it up like the free Zach Jesse ones.
No, dude, I got a better.
The silhouette of the face.
Yes, like I want like a like black and white picture
Yeah.
holding like I'm not familiar with the free Zach Jesse ones. I was not around for that. But what I want is like something photoshopped to look like Trump's mugshot. And then just put that in black and white. It just says free Noah. And like
This might be the one good use case for AI.
I want that really. I want that shirt. I want someone to wear that shirt. I think that would be one
It's
of the
especially
better
good
things you
because
could do.
he's not been banned from anything.
Yeah,
you know?
like it's not protesting against any actual action taken. There is no act. The Trump analogy actually does fit in the sense that like nothing is going to happen to this guy.
Yeah, it's
He's
like I'm
probably-
outraged.
Yes,
Over what? I don't know.
Nothing. I would be shocked if there were any repercussions for this man beyond we're talking about him on a podcast. I'd be shocked.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. Like maybe he'll defer a Pro Tour invite and then go to the next one, or whatever it is
Yeah,
they call
enough time has passed. He's out of the news cycle.
And he'll be like, "No, I don't know why people like I was the victim of a vicious online dogpiling attack." And I maintain my own innocence, and everyone will just be like,
anti-bullying campaign.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like, that is honestly, like, I mean, if I were in that position, I would probably do that. I would be like, I am 100% innocent. I have been the victim of an online dogpile. Let me ruminate for 5 minutes about how online makes us all worse people, platitudes like that. And then, talk about how I didn't even think my opponent needed to be DQ'd. I would not have judged it the same way. Or maybe even you own up to like being kind of a bad judge and you're like, I'm going to step down as a Magic judge because and focus entirely on my playing career or something like that. That's the read that I would have. That's what I would do if I were in that situation.
Well, no, I mean, I think that one is like too in tune with, I don't know, just like human thoughts and emotions. Whereas at this point, it is very clear that homie he's one trick, like he is going to try and lawyer his way out of this.
Yeah, but like
whatever that entails, I don't know.
I am sort of interested in seeing what lawyering your way out of this looks like.
Oh, I can't wait.
I do kind
Can't
of want to
wait.
know. But it's possible that as a lawyer, he also understands that he should just not say anything and just go about his business. Show up to whatever the tournament is, don't address it at all, and just keep going. And then
Mhm.
everyone else looks like an asshole for doing this.
But like, presumably, you're doing this for something, right? Like, oh, I want to be successful, or I want to,
I want
beat
Gerry
up on these
Thompson
kids
to recognize me when I
because
walk up to him at a tournament.
yeah, that's still ain't happening. I'm gonna be like, who are you?
I think you'll recognize him now.
I still don't really know what he looks like, dude. It took me so long. I was just like, I've never seen you before. But then I was like looking at like the people he was around and who he was talking to and how he's talking. I'm like, I think it's that guy. I don't.
Do you think you skate on getting cheated against because the cheaters want to be your friend?
I think it's less that and more so. Okay, so Alex Bernstein,
Mhm.
your favorite, your boy.
My absolute goat, yes.
Yeah. Uh, my record against him lifetime, I believe, is 10-1.
Sure. That seems to imply that he wasn't cheating.
Yeah, from what I can tell, I am not like arrogant enough to believe that, oh, if someone is cheating against me, I would catch them 100% of the time or whatever. Like that's clearly just not true. I'm sure I've been cheated against in the past. I'm sure I will be cheated against in the future, but like I definitely did get the feeling that Alex kind of maybe like put me on a pedestal and was like scared that I would catch him.
Mm. Poor behavior from my goat. The real cheating goat would just cheat through it. This
That's
is
what I'm
like
saying. Yeah,
LeBron. This is
if
like
he was the
LeBron
GOAT,
losing in the finals, right? Like he's the LeBron of this shit. Mike Long is the Jordan, right? And so like if you're like Mike Long never stopped. God bless.
he couldn't.
He
No, didn't have an off switch.
didn't even yeah, was much like Michael Jordan's compulsive gambling. Where Burton Cheney, it gets to crunch time, it's the finals, he chokes. It's LeBron. He's lost more finals than he's won. Come on, guys.
I beat Alex in the finals at least once, maybe twice.
Yeah,
Also,
this is LeBron. The numbers may be better, but they just don't compare to the sheer will and dedication that it took to really just stick it out and just put your win con in your lap and just do that in the finals of a pro tour. That rocks. That's a baller move.
The thing that I do think that is certainly driven by arrogance and hubris is that maybe Alex was cheating the whole time and I just beat his ass that badly anyway.
Yeah, no, that's now you're in the cope range where it's like, yeah, he cheated, but it didn't fucking matter. I just got his ass, bro.
And he was so good that I never caught him. I never noticed. But
he's just the best cheater ever and the worst player.
He couldn't stop. We all agree that he was cheating all the time, right? So he must have been cheating against me. And still, look at my record. I don't think there's another random person on Earth that I have that good of a record against. It's incredible.
That is a very funny statistic when you think about it. And I do think, yes, Occam's razor is he was afraid to cheat against you. That would make sense.
Yeah.
Like that.
And it definitely was not like, oh, I want to be your friend, because he didn't work very hard at that,
My goat and his what is it? What is it he owes you?
Well, half the set of the Power 9 minus like some nickels that he gave me a couple times when I like turned him upside down and shook him.
My
goat, whatever fell out of his pockets.
Oh my god, what a king. Like, just I can't believe that he denied it long enough that book never got written. I would read that book. I want that book so bad, man. We need to hook him up. Like, we need to hook him.
Doors open too.
Book. Yeah, Alex.
Doors
if you're listening to this, let us write the book. You have one of the most fascinating stories in Magic history. You already did a jokey meme rap video with some guy that got 7,000 views. I am pretty sure. I'm not positive, but if I put you on my main channel, I'm pretty sure we can do better than that.
Yeah, dude.
I'm just saying, Alex, hit me up. We will write this book together. We will. I just want to know, man. I just want to know, like, the sordid details of like putting a Primeval Titan under your life pad. I just want to know. It's just I want it bad.
I want to know everything because I especially think that there are many things that we do not know about, and like there's more lore, right?
And
Like
there,
the
it's
him cheating in
almost
poker
certainly
stuff,
hilarious.
the him cheating in poker stuff.
Yes.
Like,
Oh,
there's so much we don't know.
there's so many things that are probably just as funny as Two Explorers, and
Oh yeah,
we don't have any of them.
I know that he got banned from like all the poker places in like Austin, Texas, for example. I want to
Yes.
know how all that went down. I want to know the characters involved. Like, come on, man.
I want to make a TV show about your life, Alex. We call it, I don't know. You call it like Drifter, but the D fades away to be like replaced with a G over the course of the over the course like of the opener. It goes from like Drifter to Grifter, and he's
That's
just
actually
like,
kind of inspired.
it's awesome, and then he just like goes place to place, game to game, and each one is like a different place or a different game each season, and the end of the season is always the same, which is him getting banned from whatever thing that like he's doing at the time, and it's just like every season is a different game in which he is cheating. I I feel like I cooked. All right, we have to end it there. We just did like an hour and 10 minutes on Magic the Gathering. It's a whole extra podcast.
It was glorious
on this. Thank you so much for like getting to an hour and 55 minutes. I hope you enjoyed that. I've been KMBest. He's been Gerry Thompson. For our future third mic, Alex Bertoncini, signing off.